Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Ren X-Men, and I will be your host for the foreseeable future. Wait, no. What are you doing? You idiot! Oh, sorry there, everybody. Experienced some technical difficulties there for a minute. Seem to be back to normal now, though. Alrighty, let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to the show. It's Saturday, and that means it's time for Super Saturday, the show where we discuss all things super and awesome. And today we have yet another personal favorite of mine coming all the way back from 91, the Ren and Stimpy Show. The show is produced by Spumco. Make of that name what you will, because we sure did. And aired on Nickelodeon from August of 91 to December of 95, although it had one last gasp on MTV in October of 96. And honestly, we were surprised it ran as long as it did. It was gross, it was over the top, it was inappropriate, and we loved it. John Crickfalusi, or just John K as he was credited, was the heart and soul behind the show. Sadly, he was only involved in the series until 92 when Nickelodeon canned him over altercations with the network's standards and practices and also production delays. Games Animation did the final 3 seasons of the show, and they were nowhere near as good, at least for me. Crickfalusi tried to bring the series back in 2003 on Spike TV, and it seemed to be a marriage made in heaven as Spike wouldn't give a or a fuss about the show's material. But then again, Crickfalusi couldn't meet a deadline, and the show was canceled early due to production delays. Yes, a pattern emerges. The show centered around two characters, the Chihuahua Ren Hoke, voiced by John Kay during the first 2 seasons and Billy West for the remainder, and the cat Stimson J. Stimpy Cat, voiced by Billy West. I never could get Stimpy's voice down, so props to Billy West for that one. Each show is its own self contained story, and they vary wildly in setting and premise. One episode, they might be space explorers, the next, they might be living in a trailer in someone's backyard. It was all over the place. This uncertainty was actually exciting. You never knew what shenanigans the pair were going to start out with from show to show, and that just added to anticipation every time you sat down to catch an episode. Supporting characters came and went without any consistency. All of them are just there to fill a slot in a gag, as the show was very reminiscent of the 50s cartoons, where everything revolves around the chaos and the main characters. It always reminded me a lot of Tom and Jerry, but like a little more modernized, less PC Tom and Jerry. Although Tom and Jerry had his problems too, but anyway. According to legend, John Kay came up with the character of Ren from a postcard of a chihuahua in a sweater. Stimpy came from a Tweety cartoon called A Gruesome Twosome, where the cats in the animation had big noses. These were allegedly around since 78, John Kay coming up with them for his own amusement. As somebody who does the same around the house, I'm inclined to believe this legend. Fast forward to the late 80s, and John Kay is pitching some shows to Nickelodeon, none of which they liked. However, animation production VP Vanessa Coffey liked the characters of Ren and Stimpy, and John Kay was given the go ahead for that idea. Crickfalusi made it a couple of years under Nickelodeon. It started out fine, as he pitched the series on the cheap, but after Coffey was sidelined as the sole executive and Nickelodeon's oppressive standards and practices started crowding further and further into the series, creatively, it only exacerbated Crickfalusi's terrible time management skills. And seriously, the dude could not keep a deadline, and long after it had infuriated Nickelodeon, it started to annoy the fans too. Crick cites the episode Man's Best Friend as the tipping point, where an abusive father figure is presented. Yeah, this was late 80s, early 90s. Networks were having none of that. I mean, my gosh, remember the rows that would sweep the country when sitcoms would very briefly and very carefully address subjects like that? It was a prudish time. Thank you for that, Tipper Gore. So, Crick was out the door, and Games Animation, later Nickelodeon's own animation studio, was in. Say what you will about John Kay, but the man knew what he was doing. He was funny, he was creative, he had a vision for the show. When the production switched, it wasn't the same Ren and Stimpy show anymore at all. It was just Nickelodeon parading around with a skin suit on. It had no soul whatsoever. Which is not to say the episodes weren't enjoyable. It's just that they were such a dramatic departure from what was that it proved a barrier for many, myself included. It was really John Kay that made it all happen. He took a golden age approach to things where he was the director of everything, and it worked, minus the whole deadline thing. And this was in contrast to the norm in the 80s where there were multiple directors, everyone in their own little creative cells. It really was the early iteration of what I like to call the cube farm, where everyone's cloistered away in their own little cubicle in the hope it'll boost productivity. But this was a creative endeavor, and that approach just does not work. So John Kay had it right. He was old school. He understood the process on a level that's sadly been lost for decades now. One of the things I found most memorable about the show were the fake advertisements, especially Log. I probably haven't seen that episode in decades, but I can recite the entire thing, start to finish, right here and now. Don't worry, I'll spare you my singing. Y'all have endured enough of my shenanigans for one episode. The show, though, was beloved. Last time I checked, the show holds the coveted 100% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a rating deserved, at least for the first couple seasons. It doubled the viewership numbers on Nickelodeon, but like I said, it was a prudish time. So even though you have the network making money, they weren't making money the way they wanted to, so the show was doomed. There were shows that tried to march in its footsteps, like Two Stupid Dogs and the Schnookums and Meat Funny Show, but they just weren't the same. But the show did open doors for different projects, like Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead, where Judge has stated openly his pitch probably never would have been picked up had the trail not been blazed already by Ren and Stimpy. There's even influence evident in SpongeBob SquarePants, although immensely toned down. TV Guide placed the show 13th on the 50 greatest cartoons of all time back in 2002, and then Wizard, the magazine about or whatever Wizard World was, they ranked it 12th as well. Tragically, in 2020, it was announced Comedy Central was trying to bring the show back, presumably with as many original talents as they could manage, including Billy West and John Kay himself. However, and this is the tragedy part, uh, Kirk himself got in some serious hot water over sexual abuse allegations, and that was that for the man. Whatever else the man was, he admitted to having an underage girlfriend and only escaped even more hot water as the statute of limitations had run. What were you doing, man? Come on. Anyway, the new show never saw the light of day, although those involved still insist it is in production for half a decade. So make of that what you will. The good news is the entire series is widely available for a very affordable price. So, as always, I encourage you all to get out there, get your physical media. Digital disappears. It's very good at that. Don't get sucked into the network shell game, keeping you subbed to 8 different services to watch one show. But I digress. Finally, the show was a rare wonder, of which there are numerous iterations in decades past. It existed, it was amazing, and then it was gone. I found myself singing that tune way too much as the decades rolled by, but it is what it is. And that's my final thoughts on the show. It was gross. It was over the top. It was wildly inappropriate, and it was awesome. And it came out right at a time where the audience was thirsty for something a bit less toned down, a bit less safe. Too bad it couldn't have lasted longer, but at least we have 2 great seasons. But that's all I got for today. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you lending me your time and putting up with my hillbilly antics. I hope I entertained you, if at least. And if I did, may I impose you for a like? It's just a little thing you can do that YouTube loves. Helps my itty bitty little channel keep it going. And if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe, ring the bell icon. I put out videos multiple times a week on a variety of subjects. So you're bound to find something you enjoy. But that's it for now, everybody. It's a Saturday, shaping up to be a decent one if the heat don't rise too much more. So get out there, enjoy yourself a Saturday morning cartoon, watch a good movie, read a comic, roll some dice, play a good game, drink a little water, and as always, have a good one.